Hey, Clemson family, the 2024 Clemson football schedule is out. It is front loaded. We'll break it down for you bit by bit.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Clemson, Georgia always has a good feel to it, doesn't it? I don't care how good the teams are. I don't care if one's dominant and one's not. I don't care. When they play, that gives you a little bit of extra juice. And I love that they're playing to open this season, even if it is in Atlanta.
Yep. I don't think there will be quite the advantage that there would have been for Clemson, Georgia Tech in Atlanta had they had that upper deck open, right? But it's going to be a tilt. I'll tell you that. I'm Bill Zimmerman. Welcome to the Reign Supreme All Way podcast, coming at you kind of late in the evening, a little shadowy here for me, but we'll work our way through it. Also, we'll get into some recruiting news that broke the last couple of days, so you'll want to be on top of that as well with Elite Junior Day right around the corner. But let's get into that schedule. We knew the opener would be the big game that Daniel mentioned, Clemson, Georgia, followed by maybe a sneaky good game the following week, Appalachian State. Now the ACC has released the rest of the schedule and the dates going on, and we'll just kind of read through it right now. I know I'm not going to try to be reading the telephone book or anything, but September, maybe to me, the biggest shock on the schedule, and someone joked about this would happen on one of the message boards. I think they were joking. Right after Appalachian State is an open date, week 3.
Yeah.
Then, so that's kind of funky to me, but you get NC State at home the week after that, Stanford the week after that, and then at Florida State October 5th. Boy, that's quite the 3-game stretch, quite the 5-game stretch, really. Maybe you don't mind having a bye week in there after that App State game to maybe get some of your early season jitters out. I know it sure would have helped after that Duke game last year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have, because maybe that could have gotten rid of some of the fumbleitis that this team had in 2023. I'm okay with the open date early because there's another open date later,
Right.
right? If you only had one open date and then you play 10 straight games, I don't like that at all. But having a second open date, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
And look, none of this is really a surprise. We don't have the times yet, so we'll figure all that out, as we go through the season, except for, they'll set the first 2 or 3 weeks as we get closer. I wish they were playing SMU. I wish they were playing Cal and get all the new teams in the mix, but you have to space those out for everybody. So, I like the schedule. I like playing Virginia, seeing Tony Elliott, former Clemson offensive coordinator. But I really love the first part of the schedule. I like getting Florida State early-ish, and I know we'll roll through the rest of the schedule, but getting NC State at home, getting Stanford at home, I think that'll be really cool. And look, Stanford is not great, but it's new, right? And we all love new, and we all get excited by new, and it gives you a little, warm, tingly feeling about playing a Stanford. And do you remember the last time we played Stanford?
But
Or when
is it a Gator Bowl?
last time Clemson played Stanford was the Gator Bowl in the
Okay.
80s. And where was Clemson's last game? Gator Bowl. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of fun ties to that. So yeah, I said we. I meant Clemson football program. I shouldn't say we. I know how that sounds. But no, I'm excited about playing Georgia for sure. Right? You and I grew up, and Clemson, Georgia played every year.
Right.
And the games in the 80s, there wasn't a blowout in the mix until
David
Clemson.
Treadwell and Kevin Butler were practically
Yes,
regional household names, weren't they?
right. 3 games were decided, or 3 games were decided by a last second kick.
Yep.
And a fourth one was a tie because both teams missed a kick
Right.
on the last play. Even the year that Georgia won the national championship, or the year after they won it, and then Clemson won it, they played on Labor Day night, and it was a really good game. There wasn't much offense, but it was a good game. So all of those games, I think I've done the math. It's like 7 of the games were 1-score games in the 80s. So, and we remember the game a couple years ago in Charlotte, and now this game will be played in Atlanta. So really excited about that, excited about NC State, excited about Stanford. and then jumping into Florida State with really your first true road game.
Yep. And a familiar face in that one, as we've discussed before, new Florida State quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. We're assuming he's going to be the starter. I mean, maybe Brock Glenn can put up a fight if he sticks it out and tries to earn the job. I would think Uiagalelei would beat him out handily, but never say never, right?
Right.
So then you go from at Florida State, another road game at Wake Forest on the 12th. You mentioned Tony Elliott. He and the Virginia Cavaliers come to Death Valley. That'll be a nice homecoming of sorts for Coach Elliott on the 19th. You mentioned the second open date. That'll be October 26th. Tell any of those fall wedding people September 14th or October 26th. Those are your two opportunities, not just one, but two this year. Don't mess it up. And then you get into November.
Don't get married in the fall. How about that? Let's just
Well,
don't get married during the fall. How about that?
I'm guilty of that. We did that, my wife and I.
Well, yes,
it's held
did.
up. It's held up.
It was early in the season, right?
It was early in the season. It was down here in Central Florida, and that was Gators Volunteers Day, which it was a big game. So a lot of people were sneaking out to the lobby to check on the score, and of course you had your firstborn son, I believe it was.
He was a week old.
You came for the ceremony and had to head back home to be there with home. Ben.
Yes.
So Ben, you've always been more important to me as it should be.
Well, I mean, not always. He wasn't around the first 20-something years of your life. So after he was born, yes, he became more important.
And then things that Clemson fans will care more about. You get into that November schedule. It's a full gauntlet. It's a 5-game November. I'd love for Tim Beret or Ross Taylor to dig up. When's the last time Clemson had a 5-game November that didn't include a postseason game, like a conference championship game or something like that? But you start it out and you finish it at home. You've got Louisville on the 2nd at home. You got at Virginia Tech on the 9th. You're at Pitt on the 16th. So a couple of potential cold weather games between those two, if there's an early winter snap. And then back home for a couple of in-state rivals, you've got on the 23rd, the Citadel. And on the 30th, you have that school down I-26, which will not have its Rattler in the offense this year. So that'll be interesting to see how that's going to unfold for the Gamecocks and how they're going to how they're going to be set up by the end of the season. At least maybe they'll be on a roll with their new quarterback and perhaps some other talent around the field. I'm not so sure that they've done a good job of rebuilding around the field. So even if they got a live arm in there, I'm not sure how they're going to cope all over the rest of the field. Speaking of live arms, Cade Klubnik, I think, is going to be tested early in the schedule, more so than late. You've got some stiff defense from Georgia, obviously, even when they're in a mode right now like Clemson was years ago. They're reloading. They're not rebuilding. They have lost some talent from last season going into this season at some key spots, but that they have guys who are prepped and ready under Kirby Smart. Appalachian State in the Sun Belt era of the Mountaineers, they have been solid and strong. No glaring weaknesses from them. They're always a contender in that conference. And, I was talking with my wife. She was a little disappointed that her alma mater is headed to the Sun Belt. She's like, isn't that a step down from CUSA? And I'm like, you know what? I don't think it is anymore. I think Sun Belt has become a very strong conference, at least at the top heavy portion of it, right? With Liberty, with Coastal, with App State, Georgia Southern. You never know when they're going to rise up and have a really strong year. So that's a very capable conference. Dave Doran, NC State, he always puts out a solid, at worst, defense, I would say. His floor for defense is a pretty high floor, even if sometimes the ceiling isn't as high as some of the others you'll see around the ACC. Stanford, I have to admit, they've kind of been down lately, so I don't know what that'll be all about. But then Florida State, they may have to rebuild a little bit. We'll see how they've reloaded. I don't think their transfer class this year has been as good as the last couple, so they're going to have some challenges replacing Jared Verse and replacing some other key faces on that defense. But regardless, they will again test Cade Klubnik and the Clemson offense. The offensive line will have to do better this year. They played well last year against Florida State, one of their better games, I would say. But this is going to be a test for the Clemson offense and early. And we saw 2 years ago, where an early game against Georgia really sort of put the brakes on that Clemson offense for some time, didn't it?
Yeah, it really kind of set the tone for the struggles of the last couple of years. This looks like the NASCAR schedule to me. It does. Daytona 500 is their best race. The Clemson Georgia game is the best. Georgia's the best team on the schedule, and I don't think
Nice.
it's close. I think Florida State is going to be fine. I think Mike Norvell's done a good job there, but without Jordan Travis, are they the same kind of team that they were with him? I just don't think they are.
Right. Or Jared Verse.
Or Jared Verse, or Keon Coleman, or they loaded up for this 2023 season and had a great year.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be criticized for that. They had a great year. They should have been in the playoff. I still contend they should have been in the playoff. But I know how you feel about it, Mr. Central Florida.
Hey,
but
Mr. They didn't have their quarterback.
Well,
moving on though.
Was the quarterback play in the Rose Bowl any better than the quarterback play we would have seen from them? I don't know, but we'll see. But it's hypothetical, right? And I don't like to live in hypotheticals. They didn't get in, so whatever. But I don't think they'll be as good this year without Jordan Travis.
I agree.
Now that game's on the road. This schedule is not as attractive, quote unquote, as last year's. I also don't think it's as tough as last year's. Look, Duke at that time of the opener was a good team.
Healthy.
Right. NC State is NC State. So they're the same, or better. But these other teams, like Georgia's Georgia. Georgia's the best team on the schedule. But Bill, look at the teams that they're playing this year who they played last year. Are any of them better than they were last year?
Right. Maybe Louisville. And we didn't play Louisville. Clemson didn't play Louisville last year. Louisville is probably the second toughest game, or the third, maybe the third. Let's give Florida State third credit. It's the third toughest game on the schedule. Virginia Tech has improved, but they should beat Virginia Tech. They should beat Pitt. They should beat, obviously, the Citadel. South Carolina at home, they should win. Although they should have won 2 years ago too. Exactly. Got to play them all.
Wake Forest isn't right. Wake Forest isn't as good.
Right.
I don't think Florida State's as good. So, Florida State has a really good freshman class coming in that should help, but so does Clemson. Clemson should be better in 2024 than it was in 2023, but we're projecting. We'll find out when they play the games. It's January. We're guessing. So, the schedule, there's no Notre Dame on the schedule. The North Carolina's not on the schedule, right? So, that run that they had at the end of through November that looked kind of tough when you're 4-4. I don't really see that on this schedule. But they have to play the games. Mm-hmm. We'll find out. And, the transfer portal will open again after spring practice. We'll see who some of these schools add. But I like where Clemson is going into 2024. All the not too early top 25s, all that stuff, they're coming out. And we've talked about this. Stuart Mandel, my boss at The Athletic, he has Clemson winning the ACC. Well, if you win the ACC, no matter what you think of the ACC, fair, not fair, whatever, if you win the ACC, you get a top 4 seed. So, this just feels like a different season for Clemson. Are they back, quote unquote, to what they were? 6 straight playoff trips, 2 national titles? No, they're not. The talent's not the same. But you're not playing that Clemson team, right? You're playing the teams on your schedule. And that Georgia one is really, really tough. The other ones, not so much. Not as tough as Georgia.
No, I think, I don't want to say the middle chronologically of this schedule, but I think if you look at the middle talent-wise of this schedule, I don't think it's as tough this year as it was last year. I think you get your tougher opener. The opener will be more difficult against Georgia than it was against Duke. But if you look at it ACC-wise in last year's schedule, you had Florida State, obviously, the top team on there. You had the Miami game. You knew that was going to be tough. I don't think the NC State game should have been tough last year. I think that should have been, I won't quite say cakewalk, but it should have been a solid victory for Clemson, and they didn't manage to make that happen. You know, I don't see games like that Miami game and that NC State game on here. Now they obviously are bound to crop up at any point. NC State's got a new quarterback, and they're going to be able to, hopefully for their sake, revamp the offense. Hopefully for Clemson, Clemson shuts it down anyway. The other side of the ball, and we'll get more into specifics of offense and defense previews, but got to find some answers at defensive end. Got to find an answer at middle linebacker. Those are going to be two key spots, and that's how you rush the passer, and B, stop the run reliably while trying to rush the passer by having a very strong middle linebacker. So those will be two spots that'll be very interesting as well early on for the Tigers in that rough stretch. It reminds me of the 2017 schedule, and I turned to my cousin. I may have said this to you at one point, but I went to a family reunion that August, and I said, you know what? The first 5 games are the toughest. And if we go 0-5, I don't care, because we just won our championship last season. Who cares? And they went 5-0 with Kelly Bryant as the new starter at quarterback. I mean, that was a gauntlet of sorts, those first 5 games that year. There were no gimmies in there anywhere. I was kind of like, come on, John Swafford, really? This is how you treat the reigning national champion? You hit him like that out of the gate with a new starting quarterback. So Dabo Swinney knows how to prepare a team for a tough early schedule like this. Didn't work out as well last year. Hopefully the lessons have been learned by the players and by the assistants for what it really does take. Someone like Barrett Carter, who last year said, hey, I have to admit I wasn't in shape. I didn't spend my offseason doing the right things. Hopefully he's got a voice in that locker room and says, hey, guys, don't make the same mistake I made. Learn from what I did. I'm going to lead by example. So there's a lot of optimism, I think, for this schedule in 2024, and then getting back, even if you drop a game somewhere somehow, whether it's Florida State, whether it's Louisville, whether it's the unexpected, that's been known to happen. You can still get into the ACC championship game a little easier now, with one loss. And number two, once you get into that ACC championship game, or even if you just finish the season with one regular season loss, it's a 12-team playoff now, and you can get back in. So I'm pretty relieved, and especially this team should be able to look good late when there's a lot of scrutiny on it. To how are you going to rise and close strong? Getting close to that postseason bid should be set up well for the Tigers. Like you said, they got to play the games, and you have to play them all, and they have to take advantage. So I'm pretty excited. I think you are too. I think what you're saying about the maybe lack of excitement is kind of like, what are the really, really can't miss games, right? For fan interest, and maybe for, when do you want to go to Death Valley? There's no really star attraction on that. I think Appalachian State's going to be a very fun home opener. I do think Louisville is going to be a solid game. We'll see what the Cardinals can do if they can build off of last season's success. And then, of course, everybody wants to go to that South Carolina game. So, again, fall weddings, your chances are September 14th and October 26th. Don't mess it up and do it on a big rivalry game for your family like I did. So
don't do it. Absolutely don't do it. No, I'm kidding. No, look, I think I'm not glossing over this schedule. I'm not doing that. Right. I don't think Clemson's in the same spot where it was 5 years ago, where you could look at the schedule and go win, 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 right? And even the 2016 team that won the national title, how many one-score games did that team play in?
And lost to Pitt.
Lost to Pitt. It was ridiculous how the NC State game, remember, where they should have lost on the field goal. And it took a loss for them to focus and get to be the team that it needed to be. Even the championship game was a heart-pounding finish. So, look, NC State is really good. I think Dave Doran, for all his little idiosyncrasies, I think, he has to be commended for the job he's done at NC State. That program's in better shape than it's been in my lifetime, other than maybe when Dick Sheridan was the head coach in the 80s, right? Jeff Brom did a great job at Louisville in his first year. But again, a lot of transfers. How much we're still in this transfer era to see how much that will carry over. Look what Michigan State did in Mel Tucker's first year or early in his tenure. And then, boom, all those transfers leave, and they were terrible. And again, he got fired for off the field stuff. But, I mean, would he have kept his job much longer if they kept being as bad as they have been these past couple of years? So we don't really know what Louisville is going to be. Again, I think Florida State, Mike Norvell's doing a good job there. I think they're going to be really good. I just don't see them being what they were last year without Jordan Travis. I think the world of Jordan Travis as a college quarterback. I don't know what he'll be in the NFL, but I know what he was in college and what he did to become that player. He stuck it out. He could have transferred. He stayed there when he didn't play. So I think the world of him as a player. But I just don't think they'll be as good. Now you got to go on the road for that game. So I think Clemson should be improved. The coaching staff is improved with the two moves that were made during the offseason. I think they took positive steps at both of those spots. Not that Coach Hall wasn't doing a good job, but I think that it was time for there to be change. I love what Coach Rumph brings to the team. I love what Coach Luke brings to the team. And I think we're seeing that paying off in recruiting already. But I think with a full offseason with them, we saw what they were able to do in the bowl game. With a full offseason of them working with this group, I think this staff is going to be better.
Yep, I think so too. YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Definitely throw your comments in there. Tell us where we're missing the mark. Tell us where we may have skipped over something, glossed over something. You know, we don't mind if you tell us where we get it right either. That's for sure. Let's get into.
I've been called an idiot. You can't call me much worse than I've been called before. So let us have it.
Same here. Same here. Let's get into recruiting a little bit, because in advance of the Elite Junior Day coming up this weekend on Clemson campus, there is a new commitment. It is from defensive end Ari Watford. He is out of Virginia. He is a 4-star on ESPN, Rivals, and 24/7. Measurements come in at, oh gosh, where did it go? I lost it. Big guy, defensive end. I'll track it down while you're talking later. He is an Elite Junior Day attendee and has gone ahead and committed early before things get going, get flowing. What a good time for some momentum for this group. I believe that brings this class to 8 commits now. I'll double check that as well while you're chatting. Some reports have him as a 5-star. I've only seen the 3 4-star rankings for him. You've got Marquise Henderson, the athlete, defensive line, Amari Adams, Carlton Juju Preston at receiver, another guy out of Virginia. You've got Logan Brookings, son of an NFL guy that a lot of Southern folks know. Keith Brooking, he's a tight end out of Savannah. You've got Easton Ware, offensive lineman, going to work with that new coach, as he mentioned, Matt Luke, when he gets here. You got Blake Hebert, quarterback out of the Northeast, and then maybe the star of it all, a guy who has just been lighting it up, running back Gideon Davidson. So a lot of those guys had committed, a while back, and now they've got their 8th commit to bring some momentum into Elite Junior Day, where sometimes this program can pick up another commitment or 2 on the spot or shortly thereafter.
Yeah, it's an interesting group so far. Oh, and for some reason I lost my video. Sorry about that.
Hey, there you are. Almost.
Yeah, I lost my video. I don't know what happened there.
That's all right.
There it goes. Sorry about that. Don't know.
The show must go on.
Yes. Hey, it's probably better without my face on it anyway. People might enjoy it a lot more. No, I look, what a great start to the weekend, and we'll see if there's any more commitments this weekend. But it is a great start. Again, Coach Rumph making an obvious impact in recruiting defensive end. He coaches the defensive ends. We're seeing offers going out to offensive linemen. The short kid who was committed, Mason Short, who was committed to Alabama, has announced an offer. Tay Harris is a defensive back who was committed to Georgia. He announced an offer. He's decommitted. So we're seeing recruiting step up. Bill, I think this is an important class for this program. I do. Not that Clemson's about to fall off or any of that stuff. I don't buy any of that stuff, especially with a 12-team playoff. But I think this is an important class moving forward and could be a really, really good class for this program. And what a great way for the recruiting to get started with the commitment today. Again, we'll see this weekend. We'll hear all the reports. Everybody's going to love Clemson this weekend. Everybody's going to love their visit. Nobody comes out of a visit and says, "Oh my God, that school stinks. I hated the way they treated me." At least we don't hear that very often, right? It's pretty rare that a player comes out of a visit and goes, "Oh my God, those guys are idiots. I never want to play there." Maybe even if they don't commit.
My whole weekend.
Yeah, it was terrible. I'm not going there. So everybody's going to love Clemson coming out of this weekend, and they'll love their next visit as well. But I do think they'll make some inroads this weekend. This is a big time visit weekend for the program. You kind of wish the basketball team had a home game, so there was that kind of environment as well to get them involved in that. But I think this is going to be a good weekend for the program. And it might not even be a bunch of commits.
Right.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It might, but it's doing the groundwork for something to come up this summer.
Yep. Big win for Chris Rumph, as you mentioned, new coach who's got to get things going. And boy, there's a nice commit to get. Watford checks in at 6'5", 234 on one service, 6'6", 230 on another. So that gives you an idea of where he is. Sometimes I like to go to all four and kind of average those out, but that'll give you a quick on the fly idea of where he stands. He's top 50 in a couple of services, so that bodes really well. And again, a position of need because you're hoping AJ Hoffler steps up this year or Cade Denoff steps up this year, or somebody slides outside and does a much better job. Obviously, you've got TJ Parker there. I've kind of wondered in the back of my head, could they scheme to get Barrett Carter in at defensive end every now and then in a pass rush situation? I've got no grounded information that says that's going to happen at all. Just kind of a crazy thought that I've got. They could use the help there. Maybe Jaheim Lawson steps up. Maybe Zaire Patterson steps up. So they're gonna be looking for guys who can contribute this coming year, and then to have guys sort of get set in their roles this year and have someone like Watford coming in next year able to contribute. That's going to be big. You've also got true freshman Champ Thompson coming in this year, and Darian Mayo coming in this year. So
yeah, don't forget about the young guys. We'll see somebody step up for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
so this
at this point last year, did we think TJ Parker would have the impact he had?
No,
I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't know he was going to step in right away and look like he was ready to be a starter. And he was a dynamic presence on this defense the entire season. So there's going to be a lot more of that coming forward. And look, it feels like they're set at one end. It's not like they need two defensive ends.
Right.
And the middle feels okay. We're not even mentioning Vic Burley, who missed all of this past season. Believe me, I've seen him in person here in Central Georgia. So there is talent there. It's just younger than what we saw from this team last year. So I think they'll be just fine. They'll figure it out. They'll find somebody at those other spots and they'll go forward.
Big weekend for Elite Junior Day, and there'll be another Junior Day later in the spring, I believe it is. So
yeah,
this isn't the only shot they've got, and you can't get everybody there, but this is typically a very big day for recruiting, and it's nice to see Chris Rumph again get off to a big start going into this at defensive end. And you hope Matt Luke, who might have the biggest calling card of all, with I think 5 or 6 guys coming in, maybe as many as 7. I think there are 5 guys offered and maybe another guy or 2 on top of that. Easton Ware, the commit, is scheduled to be there, I believe. So busy week for the 2 new guys coming up, and it's going to be, I think, critical because, like you say, this is an important class coming up. There's been great momentum the last couple of years. Antonio Williams Wade Woodaz, both stepping up unexpectedly 2 years ago as a freshman duo, one on each side of the ball. Blake Miller on the offensive line stepped in and contributed, and we'd like to see more growth out of him. But a lot of credit is due when a guy has to step up as a true freshman like that and contribute the way he did. And then last year, you look around at the freshmen across the ball in defense. You mentioned Parker. We all love Khalil Barnes coming in and doing what he did.
Absolutely.
Avion Terrell just looks like the natural that you'd hoped he would be, that he would take advantage of whatever knowledge he gained in the system that Mike Reed likes to run from his older brother, AJ Terrell. Very much his own player. He doesn't, the playing style doesn't really match AJ
Right.
Terrell's, I don't think, but equally talented and equally capable. Really blossomed late in the season. Nice timing for Mike Reed to know when he was ready. And then Shelton Lewis, another freshman who looked really good last year on the defensive side of the ball. And then, of course, Tyler Brown on the offensive side of the ball. And I like shades of what we've seen from Josh Sapp when he's been able to get in. So you want to keep that momentum going. There were some rough classes for a few years there. Let's get these 2024 guys in and see how they can contribute. David Eziamame is an early signee. We mentioned Champ Thompson. There are guys out there, Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore on the outside, a position of need immediately. A lot of excitement around that class. And then, again, coming into 2025, that nice group of 8 commits that they have and hopefully about to grow. So a very important weekend. We will keep you up to date on what's going on. Twitter.com at Clemson Kickoff. You can find us there. The app is named X. I'm well aware. The URL is still Twitter. Instagram will be on there. Maybe we'll have a little fun with something on Instagram. Definitely, though, youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. If anything really, really big happens, we will come at you sooner than we're planning to and make sure that you can hear all about it, just like we're trying to do tonight with the schedule release and going ahead and advancing Elite Junior Day the best we can. Anything I'm missing? We got about a minute left, Daniel.
No, I think you hit it all. I'm just excited to see what happens this weekend and what comes out of recruiting from this weekend.
All right. Well, we will get you back to the real world. Glad you spent some time with us. Until the next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.